Alright, this review is for the Frigidaire Professional Slow Cooker. I'm going to do a comparison test. So on the left over here we have the traditional crock pot, the original slow cooker. And then on the right over here we have the Frigidaire Professional Slow Cooker, and we're going to do a water boiling test and a couple of other small tests to compare the two. Okay, so I'm going to put 4 cups of water into each cooker. I'll show the water being measured for the first one out of the container I have it in, and then for the second one I'll just pour it in so you can see that the container is almost full with the water. I'm going to go ahead and put that into the crock pot. One, 2, 3, and 4. It's not an exact 4, but it's pretty close to 4. It's probably about 3 7/8. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the Frigidaire. Okay, we're going to put the same amount of water into the Frigidaire from the same container. Okay. So this is going to be cold water going into the containers, and you can see they have about the same amount of water in them. They're supposed to be pretty equivalent as far as capacity, and I'll go ahead and do a measurement now so we can check the water temperature before we turn the heat on. Alright, so we have a standard digital thermometer. It's currently reading the air temperature right now, so it's saying about 74.5, and we're going to go ahead and measure the water. Okay, it seems to be holding at 62.5. Do the same test over here. And this one is at 64.5, it looks like, 64.6. Which makes sense because that one's been sitting out a little bit longer. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and turn the heat on to high, and then I will measure it until it gets to the boiling point for each one, and I'll report back the times when that happens. So obviously I can't do this in live time because I only have a 10-minute limit on that. So as soon as one boils, I will stop and I will report back at that point. Okay, so it's been 15 minutes. Let's go ahead and check on the heat of the water. We'll do the Frigidaire first. Looks like we're at about 83.2 and climbing. So when I pull it out of the water, it starts to go back down. And for the crock pot, looks at it's about 93.3 and climbing. That's what it's at right now. 3.2. It's fluctuating. I don't think that the water is going to get to the boiling point of 212 degrees Fahrenheit anytime soon. So I'll test it for at least another 15 minutes, and we'll see what it's doing after a half an hour of cooking, and we'll see where things are there. Alright, it's been a half an hour. We'll check the water again and see how it's doing. I'm not going to keep it going until the water reaches 212 degrees Fahrenheit, but I will keep it going until it reaches 165 Fahrenheit, which is the minimum cooking temperature for pretty much everything according to foodsafety.gov. So we'll check the crock pot first. Crock pot's at about 128. It falls whenever I take it out of the water. So, crock pot's about 128 and climbing. And the Frigidaire. Frigidaire's at about 114 and climbing. So, I'll check in again in about another 15 minutes or so. Alright, we're just a little bit past the 45-minute mark, so let's check on how the temperatures are doing. Okay, the crock pot's at 161 and climbing. It'll be at 165 shortly. And the Frigidaire. Okay, the Frigidaire is at 142 and climbing, so it's definitely climbing slower. I'll check in again in another 15 minutes. Alright, so we've hit an hour of the water test. Let's go ahead and check on the crock pot first. So we're getting visible steam now. We're at about 172 or so for the crock pot. And for the Frigidaire, Frigidaire seems to be holding steady at 158 degrees. So it's still just a little bit short of the 165 it needs for food safety according to federal guidelines, so we'll give it a little bit more time. Alright, it's been an hour and 15 minutes. Let's see how the Frigidaire is doing. Depends on where you put it in the water. I've noticed when I used the Frigidaire earlier, it had a couple of hot spots over here on the left side. These things tend to be fairly temperamental. They really do depend on where you're positioning them in their beds for the heat that you get. So it's looking to be about 174, which means it's past the food safety mark, so that's good. And the crock pot, okay, the crock pot's about 193 and climbing. 193 and climbing. So it's been my experience when using these things that they will get up hot enough to boil or near boil water. So an hour and 15 minutes, and the Frigidaire is just passing the food safety mark on high. It's in the 170 range, in an hour and 15 minutes, and the crock pot is getting close to 200, which is getting very close to the boiling point of water. I've been using this crock pot for years, and I've never had any problems with it. It cooks very smoothly. It has a wider base, and because of the larger surface area to apply the heat, it tends to cook things a little faster. The Frigidaire has a smaller base, and I've noticed in my test with using it and also using it for real, it does heat up a bit slower than the crock pot. Both of them stabilize at about 200 to 215 degrees ish, depending on what you're cooking and whether you're putting it on high or not. That's the way that these things are designed. They're designed to basically get up to a max temperature and then stay there. Just how quickly they get there depends on what heat setting you put them at. The only difference is the warm setting will just kind of stay to a lukewarm. So once you've cooked it, if you want to just keep it warm, you just put it to that and it will stay there. So I do like that there's an indicator light. I don't know how well you can see that. Let's see. Yeah, you see the light. It tells you that it's on. The crockpot doesn't have any kind of a light like that. Other than that, there isn't really much to say about them. Both of them have worked fine when I've used them to cook for real, and as you can see with the water test, they do everything pretty much the way they're supposed to. The Frigidaire, because of its smaller surface area, heats up a little bit slower, but it is going to get to that same higher temperature eventually. It just takes it a little longer to get there. So nothing really wrong with it, nothing fantastic about it. One of the things I don't like about both the crockpot and the Frigidaire is the sides do get hot, like they'll burn you hot. So you have to use the handles. That includes the ceramic portion. You don't want to touch that directly once it's been heating for a while. They really should have done something by now with the design of these things to protect against that. So that's something I'm not happy with slow cookers in general, that they have that problem. The cord on the Frigidaire is a little bit longer than the crockpot, which I do like. I've never really liked the trend of having the short cords for kitchen appliances, because when you need a longer cord, you need a longer cord. So I'm going to go ahead and rate this 4 stars. It's certainly not average, but there's nothing about it that stands out as excellent. So 4 stars. 4 stars.